Welcome to today's webinar presented by Software Technology Group. Our commitment at STG is to facilitate the transformation of businesses and technology organizations through innovation and optimization. We are excited to have you as part of our audience. Our goal for this webinar is to provide valuable insights and ignite ideas that can benefit your organization. Thank you once again for joining us.
Well, hello, welcome to today's webinar. My name is Mel Tingey. I'm the Chief Technology and Strategy Officer at Software Technology Group. We're a consulting company in Salt Lake City, Utah. We work with clients all throughout the Intermountain West and across the United States, and we've got engineers here in America and internationally. This is the first of a series of webinars that we're going to be doing, talking about various topics that are important to business, whether you're a technology company or a company that just needs to understand various aspects of technology topics that are important to you. Today's topic is on artificial intelligence, AI. It's definitely the buzz. There's a lot of talk about it, all the way from, people on the news to various trade articles to every tech company. It seems like every project now has some AI element to it. And today's focus is really to bring some pragmatic understanding to the topic, to demystify, if you will, to understand it through the lens of practicality and what it could and should mean for your organization, and potentially even what it may not mean for your organization. At STG, we believe that, or our approach, I should say, to the adoption of AI is we take a very human-centered approach, very pragmatic, very outcome-focused, and very ethical. Sadly, there are already use cases around AI that we would not be comfortable with, and we'll talk about those a little bit more as we dig in. I've got with me today our expert on the topic of AI, Colby Litnack. We're pleased to have you. He's a part of the STG organization, a very senior architect, and has really a lot of depth in this area. I want to start today by really kind of addressing where AI fits in the overall importance, if you will, within business. Computers in business started, back in the late 50s and 60s, really picked up steam in the 80s. And most of that period is often referred to as kind of the first stage or first phase of business computing. The second phase started with the internet, with social, mobile analytics. Some people refer to it as ISMAC or SMAC, where social, mobile analytics and the internet really transformed and changed the way business thought about and used technology, whether a direct technology company or a company that obviously needs to use technology to grow. And this third major phase is really being driven by AI. It is the transformative technology of our time, and we're on the front end of it. And we can all kind of feel the push on our back that we need to be thinking about it. We can't ignore it. And so at STG, we want to be your partner in helping you to understand where it's appropriate, how to build a plan, how to help allay some of those fears and concerns with your employees, that it really does have an appropriate place in the fabric of business. So with that, Colby, why don't you introduce yourself and kind of share some of your initial thoughts on the topic before we jump in?
Excellent. Thanks, Mel. As Mel mentioned, I'm a AI solutions architect at STG. We need to jump into a topic why businesses should really care about AI. This is a foundational time, as Mel, you were just saying, right? We've got technologies that have changed the world. We've been through eras, right? We call them the industrial era. We call them the information era, right? The information age. And we have this new one that I truly believe that this will look back 100 years from now, and this will be the artificial intelligence age. And no matter how you think about it, whether you're scared of it, whether you don't want to adopt it, it's here to stay. It's not going anywhere. In fact, BCG did a study not too long ago where they surveyed over 1,000 organizations globally and found that AI investments led to 19% increase in revenue growth. HBR article just last month, a couple months ago, I should say, that said that employees that use AI are 25% faster with 40% higher quality. It's incredible, right? The personalized marketing trend is transformational. Websites are getting more engaging. Employee hiring is improving and getting better and more efficient. Non-AI supported hedge funds by 12%. Healthcare diagnosis, I read an article, errors being reduced by 85%. Mental health of employees is being benefited. And we've been doubling the compute for AI training about every 3.5 months since 2012. So imagine where that's going. It takes so much to train these models, and we just keep getting better and better at it. Employees might be worried about getting replaced, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. But in my experience, employees love not having to do tedious tasks anymore. Businesses should care about that, right, Mel? Businesses, you need to care about it. Things are changing. You need to be part of this revolution. And if you're not, your competitors will.
That's great. I agree 100% with what you're sharing. The statistics are pretty overwhelming. Various organizations that are studying, kind of watching the industry and watching how the adoption is occurring, are already finding that the use cases are really proving out to be pretty remarkable. In the AI space, we often will refer to the usage of AI through the topic of a use case. So if I think about like within HR, for example, a big use case is having an AI engine go through and read resumes, do analysis, cross-check resumes with LinkedIn, social media, almost instantaneously. The HR teams in these large organizations are loving it because it's also helping them to remove some bias. So they kind of automatically get a better diversity and inclusion by using AI to actually remove the human bias that may occur in the selection process. In marketing, for example, it's having a huge impact on content creation and even ideation, where marketers in the past would maybe take 2 to 3 days to create concept and so forth. They can now do it in half the time. And so it's not necessarily replacing marketing, but it's using that time in a much more optimal way. Manufacturing, by all accounts, is leading right now in AI usage, which is really fascinating. How the manufacturing world is really looking at how AI can help better supply chain management, better predictive scheduling of their employees, parts generation. There's lots of different use cases in that area. Customer support, we've all kind of experienced it. I don't think anyone who interacts or buys online hasn't interfaced with a chatbot. And those chatbots are making huge progress. A chatbot a year ago was pretty clunky, and we felt that. We felt how you felt the inhumane element of being spoken to by a computer. I can guarantee you've interfaced with chatbots recently where you probably thought it was a human, and it's AI.
It's completely different now.
They're getting better and faster at a pretty aggressive pace. In software and tech, there's plugins into IDEs for programmers where they can take either pre-written or code that they're writing, have it run through AI for optimization. They can even take and give the AI a problem and have suggestive code come back. It's pretty profound what it's doing for engineers to actually be more productive in the generation of applications. So I've just given a few examples across a few sectors, but maybe to kind of dive into the next area. How would you describe to our audience the general topic of demystifying? Like, I've tried to give some clarity around various use cases by sector, but how would you kind of take the mystique away from this and have people be a little bit more comfortable with the practicality of AI?
Yeah, that is a good question. And I think before I jump into that, I've got some slides, and I'll jump through the slides here, but I'd love to just talk about a couple of those use cases a little bit more, because I think they're just so great. And I think about marketing. Marketing is probably the number two,
definitely number two
for sure, right? And one of the things that is just really amazing to me, and it's not necessarily new, but it's probably new to most people that watch or that would be listening to this podcast. And the idea to me that you could have an AI use an AI model that can write personalized emails for hundreds of thousands of people, right? And take their LinkedIn profile or their buying habits and make an email for them, create an email for them that is going to help them convert, right? It's going to help them become a sale, right? And I just think that's incredible and amazing. So I'm going to jump into some of the topics around AI that I think people get really confused, because one thing that happens is when I talk to people, they, at least at the beginning, there's a little bit of a fear and like they're frozen because artificial intelligence, machine learning, they're complicated topics, but they don't really have to be. And the amazing thing that's happened in the last few years is that it kind of doesn't matter to most companies how complicated it is because you don't have to deal with it. And I'm getting ahead of myself there. But let me just talk about some of the steps. So, well, the first step that a company has to do to prepare what's called an artificial intelligence model is they have to do some data collection, cleansing, and prep. And I'm not going to go into that. It's a large effort. It's expensive. There's some compute that you have to do. It's not insignificant. It's only done once per model. The beauty of this, though, is you don't have to do it at all yourself. Someone else has done it for you most of the time. The second step is doing the actual training of the model. It's a very large effort. It's very expensive, lots and lots of money, extremely high compute. It's only done once, which is beautiful. And again, you don't have to worry about it.
So you're talking about the examples of these big investments in Silicon Valley,
where they're building,
where they're spending, in some cases, hundreds of millions of dollars actually building the neural networks, building the, as you said, kind of training the models, pushing data through the models. If an organization wants to take advantage of that model, do they have the ability to kind of fine tune based on their data?
They do. And we'll get to that point. I think the beautiful thing is, Mel, is that they can take the output of all of these companies and they can use the AI model. They don't have to do so much data collection and cleansing. They don't have to do the training of the model. They just have to take the model and use it. And yes, they can use their own data. Yes, they can fine tune it to have its own sort of brand, right?
So obviously a lot of people that are listening have probably heard of ChatGPT. Most have used it. It's one AI model that's demystified enough that people have gone out, they've created an account, maybe some have even gone to a pro level account.
I'm one of them.
Yeah, I'm one too. I was one of the first early adopters and got on that list and was excited when I got the email I was accepted in and so forth. But when you ask the ChatGPT model questions, one thing that I find fascinating is the ability to take even its own answer and pump it back in and see how it refines the answer. And you can genuinely see, number one, in the quickness of the response, but also in the sophistication of the refinement, how AI really works. It is learning. You can see that. I have personally found value in it in helping me do personal ideation. As I look in various topics or various things, I find it kind of fun to spark my own brainstorming interest in whatever topic. I'm interested in welding and woodwork and things like that. I'll ask it questions there, and it kind of goes. It'll give me some ideas. I thought I would never have thought about that, and so it's kind of fun that way. What other models? And we typically speak about AI through the term of model rather than engine, rather than AI engine. People will say an AI model. What other AI models are out there? What are some others that people might want to poke into?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the thing to say about that is everyone knows what ChatGPT is. OpenAI is a company that makes ChatGPT, but they are just one of the players. You've got Google DeepMind, you've got Anthropic, you've got the Technology and Innovation Institute, IBM Watson. Most people know what Watson is because that was the famous Jeopardy. What do you call a Jeopardy thing? Competition.
Like
what do you call
it? The game show.
The game show. The game show where Peter Jennings went up against IBM Watson, right? Mm-hmm. Up against Watson and lost. From to the AI. I think the beautiful thing here, though, is you've got all of these companies that are spending all of this money on data collection, cleansing, prep, and training models, pouring, as an industry, billions of dollars.
And that's billions with a B.
Billions with a B. And in the end, they output these things called models, and specifically foundation models. Foundation models are models that are useful for lots of different situations. General purpose is what you might say. ChatGPT is just one of many. And you can use these for all sorts of purposes. And you don't have to invest a lot into machine learning and have a bunch of data engineers and data scientists to get the value out of this AI wave. It doesn't mean you can't or shouldn't in some situations look into that, but there's a lot of value there. And I think that's absolutely great. Like, I think of it like a kid in a candy store. And for somebody that's been following AI for a while and watching this stuff slowly progress, and then this sort of wave of so much stuff coming out, I feel like I'm in a candy store and there's models all over the place. And ChatGPT is just one of them. You can, again, fine-tune them for your own data, use a knowledge-based architecture to pull your own data in to make the model do what you want to do with your data. It's absolutely incredible.
And I remember one of the conversations you and I had a little bit ago. You mentioned that one of the top scientists at Google kind of referenced this as like almost walking into a garden. Like you literally have the ability to choose all these different ways in which people are thinking about various use cases and the models that really would lend themselves in those areas. And then you can kind of pull together whatever use case you need with maybe one or two or three of them, and then have it generate and become, part of your business workflow,
right,
business process flow, so forth.
Right, and you don't need a bunch of, again, data scientists and Google level engineers to do it.
Yeah.
And that's called the model garden. They actually call it that in the Google
so
Cloud
they call
platform.
it the model garden.
Yeah,
Okay.
if you log into the Google Cloud, you could see.
Very cool.
It's called the model garden. You can go look at them, right? Amazon's got, Bedrock. There's others, right? So
because a lot of our audience do come from a little bit more technical background, I am going to interject here with a little understanding from a demystification perspective that often once you establish an understanding of a use case that you want to use, and it might be in a workflow. So, if it's that customer support chatbot, it might be a finance workflow where you want to have the accounting or the invoice approval of certain types of invoices flow through, where the AI, validates certain elements of the invoice. If it meets that criteria, it's auto approved. Otherwise, it kicks out to an exception. Of course, there's log filing and so forth. But what I was going to say is the actual implementation often only requires a software engineer within your organization to understand APIs, so an application programmer interface. So I'm looking right now at Watson, IBM Watson. One of their core models, it is 0.00025 cents per API call. And that's how they price it. So think about that in the context of a financial review, where the AI would review the invoice, meet the criteria that you've programmatically defined as acceptable. Each one of those calls is costing you a fraction of a penny. Think of the cost savings, and you free up an accountant to actually then work on, real human thinking activities rather than mundane, tasks that are kind of mind-numbing in many cases. So that's where it's an example for our business folks that are listening to actually think about AI through the lens of actually making your employee experience even better. It's not going to replace them. You still need accountants. You still need people who understand, accounts receivables, accounts payables, and how the entire processes work. But you put them into a more thinking activity, more human-based, and let AI actually handle the mundane.
And people like that.
Yeah.
People, it doesn't matter how much you want to pay them. They don't want to do the tedious work. And it's great for everybody, right? It's a win-win all around for sure. So should we talk about AI adoption?
Yeah. So let's jump to the next topic. I appreciate that. It's interesting. Adoption, I kind of jumped into it a little bit there with the API calls, because that's definitely a big part of how API adoption occurs. I would actually recommend that before jumping headlong into an AI project, that you really step back from your business. And if you can do it internally, great. If you need someone to partner, we obviously would love to partner with you to help in strategizing. But there really needs to be some foresight and forethought put into why? What problem are we trying to solve? Where does AI fit? You'll quickly identify lots of ideas across your business. As with all things, priority is going to become a big deal. And so you've got to figure out, where to spend your time up front, what projects get done first, second, and third, and how big are those projects. Most of the AI implementation projects are fairly small, usually under a month to actually get something fully functioning inside of a workflow within your organization. Definitely part of the reason why we're doing these webinars is to help people understand how STG can be that partner. But whether you choose to use us or someone else, please know that these are not huge, complex implementation efforts. They're typically done fairly quickly. Our strong recommendation, though, is that before you go headlong into something, really start thinking through the implications. How do you message it? There's still so much mystery around it that often organizations that have them happen kind of in the back room or kind of grassroots, it ends up creating a lot of confusion. A lot of employees start to really become distrustful of the organization if they don't understand really where it's going to fit long term. So we can even help kind of create the messaging around where and how they fit. There are actually places you're going to find where you're going to say, for even strategic reasons, we're not going to use AI in this area. And that actually becomes important to let your employees and your business know. In the law field, for example, there's a lot of conversation happening around the appropriate use of AI in evaluating legal activities. There's a case recently that AI was used almost exclusively to create the actual case. And so there's some really interesting ethical questions around the use of AI. So don't do it accidentally. Be very deliberate in how you're thinking about AI.
For sure.
What are your thoughts on implementation?
Yeah, for sure. I think, one thing I want to say right up front, and I think many have heard this story, but a week ago, I think it was Sports Illustrated, the CEO got fired because they allowed articles and stuff to be posted and images to be generated from AI. No one even looked at them. There was wrong stuff in there. And so, yeah, AI adoption is not something you take lightly. You don't just blindly jump into it. You for sure need to spend some time on it. And I think that's one of the keys here is that, and you said it really well, Mel, most companies I feel like need to step back and do what we're calling an AI assessment. Assess where you are at. We can help you with that. We can talk through the AI adoption channels that you're going to need to consider. And let me just jump through those adoption channels really quick, just because I think it's important. It'll help you understand why it's important that you need to look at all of these. The first one I would say is the top-down channel, right? That's the strategic stuff. If you decide as a business you want to invest in something, whether you are hiring the data scientists that you need, or if you just need to plug in a couple of little things to give you some big gains. Also might affect your mission or your values if, depending on how much you want to adopt AI. Another channel, I would call that the top-down channel. The second channel I would say is your vendor channel. And I think most of the value that's long-term is actually going to come through the vendor channel. I was thinking like Google Drive, for example. When you write an email, it helps you finish your sentence, right? Mm-hmm. You didn't have to do anything to get that. You just had to have a good vendor. And the vendor gave you the AI capability over time. Mm-hmm. And that is going to continually be the case. You will have vendors that are adopting AI and bringing the value to you, and you'll have vendors that are not. And you need to spend some time. We can help you identify what those vendors are, which ones are which, and we could talk you through what to do. And if you don't have good vendors, your competition might have good vendors. And it matters this time. Sometimes it doesn't matter because features are different between vendors. So you need to check your vendors.
That's a great point, Colby. I recently worked with an organization in the dental software space, and one of the projects that we did was an integration of AI in X-ray analysis. So fascinating. The company that I worked for chose to partner with that vendor and do the integration so that within the software, when the dental image was taken, they used an AI model to identify potential cavities. And so great example of what you just said, where it was really that vendor partnership where they brought that value of AI and all that work into that situation. And again, if you look at where AI is going to plug, it's going to plug into some of your existing workflow. So if you think about finance, you've got these big ERP packages, Workday and Oracle and all these big organizations that sell ERPs. You're going to be able to find vendors to plug into existing workflows within those tools that allow AI to then add value. And so that integration is where you need someone who understands, API level work or the movement of data in and out of the AI so that it is actually doing what you intend it to do. It's important to know also in that context that you understand the legalities of what information is moving. So, your data privacy officer needs to be fully aware of what information's moving in and out of those systems, because you don't want to compromise any personally identifiable information that would go into an AI model that could potentially, violate your relationship with how you store and use information for your clients or your employees.
Right, for sure. And I think that dental model or that dental example was a really good example, I think, or a really good model for other companies, because the office manager didn't need to know very much about AI. They just had to have a partner and a vendor that can bring it to them.
Correct.
And so having the correct vendors is part of the AI assessment that we would help you do.
And it was genuinely showing. We actually ran statistics before and after, and it was finding cavities that the dentists were missing.
Right.
So and it was working.
And that dentist is saving a lot more time and spending more time on things that
catching a cavity earlier is better for the patient. And there's really a lot of good that was coming from it.
And that's par for the course for AI. That's the kind of stuff that comes out of it. And you said something too about the legalities and talking about making sure you use AI appropriately, because I think that's a big deal. In fact, that's another channel, I would say, adoption channel that you need to pay attention to. And again, STG can help you take a look at this. I would call this the organic or the bottom-up channel. This is where your employees are just finding ChatGPT on their own, learning what it can do.
Going rogue.
And they're going rogue. In fact, I read something that said 80% of employees are using AI models without IT approval, right? And I'm not saying that that's all bad, right? But there's still something to be said about you've got to look at it. You've got to make sure that there's a policy in place so that your users know how to appropriately use the AI models that are out there, because it's happening whether you like it or not. Yeah. And there's other things too that they should pay attention to as well. Like these AI models, they tend to do this thing called hallucinate, which basically means make stuff up. And if you're not reviewing what comes out of that, like the Sports Illustrated CEO, if you're not reviewing what comes out of that is what happens. You have to. I think that kind of comes back to another thing we said earlier in the podcast, where I think there's a lot of people that are worried that AI is going to replace them. And there was an HBR article, I want to say, that I think the title was AI won't replace humans, but humans with AI will replace humans without AI. And that just kind of comes back to, what are you doing to stay relevant? What are you doing to hold on to this, or to grab onto this
fast-moving train?
Era? Yeah, it's a train. You got to grab onto it,
I like what you just said. I remember the first time I read that term hallucination in AI a few months ago. It really made me chuckle. It kind of made me think of, the college student who, got a doobie and got a little high, and it kind of gave me that mental image of, somebody who really is just saying things and they have no idea what they're saying. And genuinely, the examples I've seen of AI beginning to hallucinate, it's kind of comical. Like sometimes it will almost drop in little Easter eggs of things. And so you got to be careful. You got to be aware of what are the parameters you're pushing in and out, and not just assume that, okay, now the project's done and we're good to go. I know some organizations have even gone so far as to have a second AI engine monitor the initial implementation. So there's a little bit of a control or check and balance in that. And I thought that sounds kind of interesting, but you do need to be really wise in how you think about that content. Also thinking hard about updating your privacy policies, updating your terms and conditions, making it, it's kind of the value we've learned from GDPR out of Europe is it's better to be transparent and forthright and let your users know really what's going on than to try to hide it. Don't try to pretend to your users that this is a human. Be open, let them know. That establishes that credibility and trust. And so updating those terms and conditions and making it clear that, some of the content that you see has been generated by AI. Some of the interactions you're going to have via text or chat or email will probably have been generated by AI. People will appreciate that level of integrity.
Yeah, and I agree. I actually think that we're in this interesting time during this genesis of the artificial intelligence era where we're trying to figure out what the etiquette is, kind of like, if you're going to use AI to write a letter of recommendation for your buddy, do you tell them, right? And maybe you just say, I told the AI this and it generated this for me and I like it. Feel free to change it before I sign it. Right? But if you're quiet about it, maybe that's not good.
Exactly.
And I think that's the kind of ethics
even your own personal integrity, if you build a presentation at work to make a case for something, you're going to gain credibility by stating up front, AI helped me with this. That's actually a really important thing. Because if you start showing things that are far beyond what your intellect was 2 weeks ago, you're going to have people in the room kind of giving you the side eye saying, whoa, hold on a second. Mel's not that smart. 2 weeks ago, he couldn't come up with an original idea. How did he come up with 15 slides today? So it's good to be forthright and let people know, even in your interactions, work and personal and work, to be candid. I was just looking at something here that I searched while you were talking. The Screen Actors Guild. We all kind of watched on full display this last year as they went on strike.
Right. Yeah.
And one of the sticking points was artificial intelligence. They were very concerned. The writers especially. They did end up coming to some understanding of where it can and cannot be used. One of the things that the actors very much got in agreement, at least from my understanding, is that they have to give consent and be compensated for generative AI used to replicate their likeness. So that's kind of a cool thing that we see right in front of us, how humans are starting to really be in conflict with AI, but also want their value to be recognized.
And what I appreciate about that is these are actors and actresses that are embracing the reality, right? They're not just fighting against AI and what it can do. They're saying, look, let's harness what this actually is for me, and get the value out of it. And this is a really complicated topic. We could probably have a whole hour on this. I don't think our listeners care about this, but it's nuts.
And please know, from the standpoint of our listeners, this is the first of probably 2 or 3 webinars we're going to do on the topic of AI. We've got an agenda that we're building out for the first part of next year. We're going to hit topics on the cloud and various software development, engineering topics. But AI is to your point, Colby, we really can't pack it all in one session. And so this is meant to be more of kind of an introductory conversation around AI, but we're going to go deeper. We're in the next podcast we'll do in January. We're going to actually show you. We're going to show you what the API calls look like. We're going to demonstrate how data is moved into an AI, how it's pulled out. So you'll actually see, firsthand in our next webinar some of the technical underpinnings of what that looks like. So
and with a large language model like ChatGPT, there's this thing called prompt engineering, and we can go jump into that. I'm really excited to show some of the neat things,
It'll be fun.
And many of our STG engineers are on board with that as well. So pretty exciting.
Well, good. Well, let's jump to the next section. and talk about a few use cases. I've definitely mentioned a few. You've mentioned a few as we've discussed today. What other use cases, Colby, do you have on your list that might be helpful to kind of, and really what we're trying to do for our listeners today is we really want to have you understand that AI is already kind of permeating lots of different parts of our lives that you may not even realize. I mean, if you're in marketing at any size company, you have already felt the impact and influence of AI. Whereas finance people, for example, may not. Maybe some of those individuals are like, wow, I didn't even know that we could do some of that, or in other areas. So we just want to kind of pique your interest and also, speak to some of the specifics of where AI is being used. So did we miss any more that you would want to bring up?
I think you ran through most of them. I would like to add that product development, you did talk about software engineers having the plugins and coding assistance and being able to analyze an entire code base and give you refactor suggestions and help you write code. All that stuff is true. It is a little bit more than that. That's more of a generative AI type of thing. There's also use cases around analyzing product feedback. You hear product feedback and all that information comes in, and some of your products, I know you get a lot of feedback. It's really nice as a product manager to be able to have something do the dirty work for you to tell you what the top 5 features should be for the next release.
Yeah.
So important, so amazing. I think it's great. It can help you with market trends as well in your as a product manager, right? I think we talked about recruiting. I won't talk any more about that. I want to talk about chatbots actually, because I think I feel it's underutilized, and I think the reason why is because.
Well, let me interject. So I remember what hit me was what you said to me a couple weeks ago, and I kind of said this earlier, but it's really that the first implementations of chatbots up until about a year ago,
exactly,
they were clunky. You knew it was weird. You knew there was something off.
And everyone's frustrated with them, and you'd rather not have the chatbot.
But they're different today.
Yeah,
some of the ones you showed
different.
me, I couldn't tell it was a computer. I literally thought I was talking to a real person.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Is I think that's why there's sort of an aversion to adopting AI chatbots, is because we think of the AI chatbots that we don't like. But the AI chatbots of today are completely different. Like you said, they're completely different and they're amazing. And if you want a demo, if you're on the call and you want a demo where I can take your website and hook you up to a chatbot. It's not going to be perfect because it takes a little bit of engineering to make it perfect and production ready, but I can blow your mind, I think, unless you've messed with this stuff already.
Well, the stuff you showed me was cool. I mean, we literally took a couple sample websites, pushed the URL through we load
model. That into what's called the knowledge base.
Yeah,
is
the
what
knowledge
that
base, because
Yep.
that's that refinement.
Yep.
And then Colby said, what questions? And so I said, well, who founded your company? Boom, instant. How long have you been in business? What's your core values? What are your core products? It was right every single time. And the conversational element or conversational mode that I was given answers in felt very human. It didn't feel clunky. And they were instantaneous.
and the beauty, it's so beautiful, Mel. I'm a chatbot. I like chatbots. They have a lot of value, but I think it's partially because they're underutilized. You could use them internally for your employees. You can use them for your sales. You can use them for your customer support, obviously.
The one statistic that I read around these the newer chatbots, the ones that are being put in place over the last 6-8 months, it's genuinely taking in a call center, for customer support, it's taking those top 10, 15 topics and genuinely creating a really, really comfortable experience for the end user. People are becoming more and more comfortable interfacing through chat. I fly Delta, and I've actually come to actually enjoy working through text messaging. I can be watching TV, I can get information, book flights, make changes, and I'm still kind of, talking to my family. I'm still watching TV. I didn't have to completely go into the other room and
Get on
a phone call. And if the answer didn't, if I need to wait a few minutes, it's not a big deal. And the quality of that back and forth is pretty high. Now, I actually know that most of those with them are actually a human, but nevertheless, the comfort level people are having interfacing over an asynchronous chat message is becoming more and more the norm.
And they prefer it.
Exactly.
Right?
And then there's language barrier thing where sometimes people who are not proficient in their respective, like an English language or French or whatever, will use the chatbot so they actually have no misunderstanding of what is being said. Look up my order. This is the part number. And so there's no misunderstanding as the person communicated with maybe a thick accent or something on the phone. They actually feel more comfortable doing it through chat to get status on various things.
Yeah. And I remember one of the things I was going to say a minute ago. I know you're going to cut that out, but talking about an artificial intelligence chatbot today, there used to be sort of this, when you were interfacing with the old chatbots, there would be a kind of clear time when you're transitioning to a human, and you sort of have to request it in some situations. And if they're not online, then you don't get to. With these AI chatbots, we can build them so that it can detect if it's frustrated. It's called sentiment analysis. It can detect if the human, I should say, is frustrated and say, the AI is not performing, so let's transfer you now. And the human can catch up while they're continuing to talk to the chatbot, and the human could just take right over. And there can and should be some sort of message that says that that's happening, but at the same time, that is a completely different experience than before. And so you can load your knowledge base up, Mel, with everything that you think that the AI could handle and create a flow. It's not just that easy. You want to create a flow of the conversation as well, but you load the knowledge base up, you create a flow, and you monitor it, you improve it. And if the AI can handle questions that maybe you didn't think could answer before, you let it answer those questions. And then when it can answer the question, you can detect that and transfer it to a human. And I want to say 80% savings is what some companies are reporting in cost of support. It's just absolutely incredible.
Yeah, the numbers that I've seen statistically are that when, obviously depending on the type of organization, some require a much higher level of detail or relationship that actually a human needs to be involved. But organizations where support is, kind of your traditional tracking number, shipping number, password reset, common sets of questions that are being asked, what they're finding in those kinds of scenarios is that your support budgets will go down by 20 to 40% minimum. And like you said, some have been even as high as 80. I know one organization that I did work with some time ago implemented this, and they actually took the individuals in the support team and said, look, we're implementing chatbot. None of you are going to lose your job. We're actually going to train you and elevate you to become more strategic in account management, in actually working with the customers, which then gave even a better customer experience for those key accounts. And so they actually recognized that implementation of AI benefited their career because they moved from a lower level position in just answering calls on remedial questions to moving up into a more strategic relationship with their customers in doing more. And so that's an example where, as a company, if you really think through your core values and think through what are we going to do as a result of AI, it can actually become even a strong competitive advantage on how you use the actual people in your organization.
Not to mention the AI bot needs to be managed.
Sure.
You have to
fine-tuning,
give it feedback, and help it get better. Yep. And you need humans to do that.
Yeah, new questions.
At least for now.
Yeah, new questions, new problems that it needs to understand.
For sure.
Well, that's great. Let's move on to the last section here. And not to end on a sour note or a sad note. So this last point that we want to talk about here is really some of the worry, some of the concern. Even nightly news, almost every news agency, conservative or liberal, have actually communicated some pretty interesting, like, dun, 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 AI is going to take over the world and we got to be worried and scared. And individuals who are very prominent in computing, Elon Musk and others, have made really interesting comments about AI. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts on how should we, is there a lot of drama around that? Is that real?
Yeah.
I would love to kind of get your take on,
for sure,
kind of the worry side of, because some people are, quite frankly, they're afraid of AI.
Yeah, and I think if you talk to people that are in the space and ask them, that would be the real telling, right? That would really tell you.
That's why I'm asking you.
Yeah, and I think what I would say is I'm more than 50% optimistic, but I'm greater than 0 pessimistic. Probably 30% maybe pessimistic.
Mm-hmm.
The way I see it is, there are some things to worry about. It's going really fast. We need to elect government officials to help us with this, and I think that's all of our jobs. We need to A, understand what's going on, and B, make sure we're represented correctly, because I think regulation's a key thing there, and understanding it yourself is how you battle it. You mentioned some prominent figures that have said some interesting things, doomsday statements, right?
Mm-hmm.
They are also saying, I accept that it's here. He's joining it too, right? The pessimists are joining as well. And so we all need to. I think though the biggest thing is that we need to worry about our own space, what we can actually control, which we said already, controlling and helping your business's AI adoption, control the organic adoption, and be deliberate about your vendors and your strategic projects. I think you need to be careful about, how you use AI in general. Like we've talked about, understanding hallucinations, understanding biases, understanding the potential of copyright infringement, understanding that the next AI models are being trained off of how you are giving data to these AI models, unless you're using a private one. We don't have time to go into that, but that's the kind of thing that you've got to pay attention to. So that's the worry that I think most of us should be worried about, is how we are using AI, or you and your company, your business are using AI. The world is going to go the way it goes, and we need to be prepared for it, is probably the only thing that I can say that's realistic, right, in terms of what you can do.
So one of the things that I thought of, you and I had this conversation a few days ago in preparation for today, and when I think about AI usage, you said something, and it's kind of in the lines of what you just said now, but really the control we have is really within the realm we can control. So if I'm senior vice president of marketing at a company, $500 million company, really make sure you establish really good ethical guidelines for AI. In the integration space, this is why we want our audience to know that our approach to AI is very ethical. We will not take on projects at STG that we feel cross any lines of ethics, or the usage might push into places where data is compromised or shared inappropriately. And so when I say that with regard to engineering, it's really important that you understand your API landscape. Because AIs are self-learning, they're going to understand where there are open APIs. And so over time, it's really important that from a programmatic and data privacy perspective, that you are really clear on what your open APIs can expose, because inevitably AI engines, AI models will ultimately find them. And so as you do integrations, as you move that data, be really meticulous in reviewing at a very detailed level what's moving in and out. And I think that's our greatest protection. Of course, we're on the front end of this. 10 years from now, we're going to look back at this conversation and realize how young and naive we were. And we're going to have learned things as a human race in respect to AI that I think are going to be very interesting, very, very eye-opening in how far it pushes us in humanity. And I would just say, in kind of wrapping things up today, that, don't be unintentional or don't be delinquent in how you think about AI. Be intentional, be visionary, be out there on the front in whatever industry you're in. Even if it's an industry that you think AI has no place in, you will be shocked in the next 5 years to see where AI creates new businesses or accelerates the growth of businesses in your sector that will really surprise you. And so be ahead of that. Don't let the competition beat you in that regard.
You want to take advantage of that. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So great. Well, we appreciate the time you've had with us today. Hopefully it's been informative and helpful. We look forward to our next conversation, Colby, in January, and we'll send out those dates to all of our listeners soon, and we'll see you all then. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mel.
We hope you found value in today's webinar. If you wish to delve deeper into how STG can contribute to the innovation and optimization of your organization, please visit our website at stgconsulting.com for more information. Thank you for being with us today. We wish you a fantastic day ahead.